Among the demigod children of America, two stand out for envisioning an order beyond the Greater Will in the Elden Ring. Lunar Princess Ranni and Miquella the Kind are both Empyreans, that is, candidates for godhood, who divest themselves of their flesh and their grace to escape the machinations of the Fingers and the Greater Will, and curiously, they both receive two pairs of arms when they transcend their corporeal bodies. We know that they did not originally possess four arms. We can find the corpse of Ranni's body on the top of the Divine Tower of Liurnia, and we can see Miquella's original body in the memory cutscene that plays after defeating Promised Consort Radahn. In both cases, they have only two arms. So why, then, do they gain an additional set of arms? And what exactly do these arms represent? For this, we need to explore the real-life mythologies that likely inspired the world of Elden Ring to enrich our knowledge of in-game lore. Before we start, please note that this video will include extensive references to Hinduism, particularly the deity Vishnu, and related cultural practices. I do not intend to minimize or misrepresent any of these beliefs, which are held and practiced by millions of people across the globe. If any practitioners feel that I have misrepresented any aspect of their faith or culture, I encourage them to point me towards resources that will allow me to better represent Hinduism if and when it comes up in future videos. Now, let's get into it. Vishnu is one of the primary deities in Hinduism, responsible for preserving, protecting, and transforming the universe. He is generally depicted as a four-armed man with dark blue or bluish-gray skin. His depiction with four arms is a key component of Hindu iconography, known as Chaturbhuja, literally meaning four-armed, that symbolizes divinity, power, and dominion over the four quarters of the universe. It is particularly associated with the manifestation of a deity who descends upon the earth to perform auspicious acts for the well-being of mankind. In each of his four hands, he carries an object representative of his agency over the universe. His upper left hand holds the conch shell, a spiral-shaped object symbolizing creation and the interconnectedness of all living things. In his upper right hand, he holds a war discus representing his ability to wage war on evil to restore balance to the universe. His lower left hand holds the lotus flower, a symbol of purity and transcendence. And in his lower right hand, he carries a club or mace, symbolic of his authority. In many depictions, he is accompanied by his consort Lakshmi, whose name means she who leads to one's goal, while traversing a churning, cosmic ocean known as the Kashira Sagara. With a basic understanding of the Hindu deity Vishnu underway, we can now dive into the world of Elden Ring and explore Vishnu's symbolic parallels to Elden Ring's four-armed Empyreans. Miquella the Kind divested himself of all that tied him to his lineage. Needle Knight Leda tells us that he abandoned everything: his golden flesh, his blinding strength, even his fate. We see this for ourselves as our Tarnished journeys through the land of shadow. I abandon here the flesh of my body. I abandon here my doubt and vacillation. I abandon here my love. We learned of Miquella's reasoning for doing so from Count Ymir, who explains,
Ever young Miquella saw things for what they were. He knew that his bloodline was tainted, his roots mired in madness. A tragedy, if ever there was one, that he would feel compelled to renounce everything when the blame lay squarely with the mother.
And so Miquella, purified of his tainted bloodline, ascended to the top of Enir Ilim and was reborn a god. During the Phase 2 cutscene of the Promised Consort Radahn boss fight, we see him exit the Gate of Divinity, positioning himself on Radahn's back to assist his fight against us. When doing so, he notably possesses two pairs of arms, an upper physical pair and a lower spirit pair. And curiously, his upper left arm is missing below the elbow. In this admittedly stunning pose, Miquella holds his upper right arm high above his head. Based on Hindu iconography of Vishnu, this hand would hold the discus, a weapon of war used to restore balance against evil. Indeed, Miquella is also positioning himself for war against us, a battle that will determine whether his Age of Kindness will prevail over America's Golden Order, broken to its core. Miquella's motivations to amend the horrendous actions of his mother can be interpreted to parallel the restoration of cosmic balance, and Miquella, too, wields a discus to this end. The item description for the Discus of Light reads, produces a ring of light and fires it forwards, a gift from the young Miquella to his father, Radahn. Vishnu's discus also appears to be made of light, or at least represent it, as it is often depicted with a glowing aura and rays of light radiating from its circumference. Miquella's dedication to developing the discus as his chosen weapon is remarkable. Even after abandoning the Golden Order, he continued to conjure it by different means. According to the multi-layered Ring of Light, it is an incantation of those who served Miquella, but was cultivated by tradition separate from Golden Order fundamentalism. The consistency with which the discus appears as a weapon of Miquella and his followers makes it clear that this symbolism is intentional, rather than mere coincidence. And we experience the power of Miquella's discus for ourselves in the second phase of Promised Consort Radahn's boss fight, when he himself uses it against us. Based on what we have discussed, we can safely argue that Miquella's outstretched right hand represents his intentions of warring with our Tarnished to establish his new age, a symbolic and literal discus directly paralleling that of Vishnu. But what of his other arms, particularly his missing upper left arm? According to Hindu beliefs, Vishnu's upper left arm holds the conch shell, a spiral-shaped object that symbolizes the cyclic nature of time and the interconnectedness of existence. The spiral is a common symbol in Elden Ring, found on Marika's braids, the Shadow Tree, and Miquella's needle, the last of which we will discuss later in more detail, to name a few examples. So what are the implications of its absence for Miquella's divine being? If we focus on the conch shell as representing the interconnectedness of existence, then perhaps Miquella's upper left arm is missing because he abandoned his own interconnectedness, his duality, when he cast Saint Trina aside, tossing her into the stone coffin fissure. If this is the case, it is only sensible for an incomplete being to possess an incomplete body. Another possible interpretation involves the crucible. According to the Spira incantation, the spiral is a normalized crucible current that one day will form a column that stretches to the gods. Not only are both the conch and the crucible associated with the spiral, but both represent interconnectedness, as the crucible was a primordial form of life where all was once blended together. According to Miquella's cut dialogue, credit to Bandit Games for the discovery and distribution, Miquella declares that in his new age, no living thing will be denied, implying a strong focus on the value of individual life, the antithesis of the Crucible. So perhaps Miquella represents an opposing force to the Crucible, meaning it is again sensible that the arm symbolizing such a force would be absent. While these theories explain the conch as a symbol of interconnectedness, the same object can be said to represent the cyclical nature of time. According to the memory of grace, life in the lands between is merely a cycle. Stand before the Elden Ring, become the Elden Lord. But in Miquella's new age, his charm would reign supreme over all, preventing any individual from challenging for godhood or to take Radahn's place as his consort. If Miquella were to succeed, this age would persist for at least 1,000 years, according to his dialogue during the Phase 2 command grab attack, and could be interpreted as a long period of time representing infinity. Either way, Miquella's order would effectively end the cycle of ascending to god or lordhood described in the Memory of Grace. If there is no cycle, then there is no need for such a hand to represent it. With an understanding of Miquella's upper two arms in place, let us cast our gaze on his lower arms, clasped firmly around the neck of his promised consort. In Vishnu's lower left hand sits the lotus flower, said to represent purity and transcendence. Miquella, too, seeks and embodies these traits, which we know through the unalloyed needle and Miquella's needle item descriptions. They are a ritual implement crafted to ward away the meddling of other gods, thought capable of forestalling the incurable rotting sickness, as well as subduing the flame of frenzy. As originally observed by Smotown, the name unalloyed is a play on words. The needles are made of pure gold rather than an alloy, or combination, of metals, and also allow individuals to unally themselves with other gods by subduing or forestalling their influence. Miquella's needle can be interpreted as a strong parallel to the lotus flower, meaning that we are 3 for 3 on symbolic parallels between Vishnu and Miquella. This brings us to Vishnu's and Miquella's final, lower right arm, wielding the club or mace that symbolizes authority. There is bountiful evidence in the world of Elden Ring that gods require a lord to enact their divine will, their authority, in the physical realm. This subject alone requires a video in its own right for a sufficient explanation, so for now I will not discuss it further. This metaphysical law places Radahn as Miquella's club, the enactor of his divine will across the lands between. We know that Radahn embodies the qualities that Miquella desires in a ruler from the remembrance of a god and a lord, which reads, Miquella saw in Radahn a lord, his strength and his kindness that stood in stark contrast with their afflicted selves. I also believe that Radahn was not Miquella's first or only candidate to be his lord, but for that explanation you'll have to go watch my previous video on Godwyn and the Eclipse. Vishnu is also commonly depicted next to his consort, Lakshmi, just as we only ever see Miquella when he is talking to Radahn, in the case of his memory cutscene, or physically by his side in the final DLC boss fight. Therefore, Radahn can be interpreted as a dual symbol, since the concepts of Mace of Authority, or the Enactor of Divine Will, and Consort are blended into one concept in Elden Ring's metaphysics. Leveraging our real-life knowledge of the Hindu deity Vishnu, we can establish a full explanation for why Miquella has 4 arms in his divine form, the symbolic nature of each arm, and even why he holds his upper right arm above his head. But what of our other 4-armed friend, Lunar Princess Ranni? Let's start with the obvious. As I'm sure you've already observed, both Ranni and Vishnu have blue skin, which, in Hinduism, is said to represent a god's association with the vast expanses of sea and sky, as well as a tranquil personality. Blue is clearly not just an aesthetic choice for Ranni then, but a deeply symbolic one, given her affiliation with the Dark Moon, a cosmic body in the vast expanse of space. And she, too, has a cool, calm demeanor. But for us to fully understand Ranni's parallels to Vishnu, we need to uncover the true meaning of her ending. If we choose to summon her at the stone platform, she states,
The battle is over, I see. I do solemnly swear to every living being and every living soul. Now cometh the age of the stars. 1,000-year voyage under the wisdom of the moon. Here beginneth the chill night that encompasses all, reaching the great beyond. Into fear, doubt, and loneliness, as the path stretcheth into darkness. Well then, shall we? My fair consort eternal.
She further expands on her intentions in a secret dialogue we can find at Ranni's rise, just before the conclusion of her questline. She says,
I take it thou hast noticed. I shouldn't be surprised. I thought I might expound a little further upon the order I envision. Mine will be an order not of gold, but the stars and moon of the chill night. I would keep them far from the earth beneath our feet. As it is now, life and souls and order are bound tightly together. But I would have them at a great remove, and have the certainties of sight, emotion, faith, and touch all become impossibilities, which is why I would abandon this soil with mine order. Wouldst thou come to me even now, my one and only lord?
Ranni's ending could be a video in its own right, so to briefly summarize, she aims to inherit the new order of the world and then leave the lands between on a cosmic journey, liberating the inhabitants of the lands between from her own desires and the influence of fickle outer gods. Credit to Smotown and Frontline Japan for making sense of her ending. Their respective videos and articles are linked below. With an understanding of Ranni's motives and ending in place, we can continue to unpack the symbolic parallels to Vishnu. When we are introduced to Ranni in the Elden Ring story trailer, her upper pair of hands sits in a praying pose similar to Hinduism's Anjali Mudra, a pose representative of the lotus flower. As we have already discussed, the lotus represents purity and transcendence, qualities evident in Ranni's ending. Her decision to remove herself from the lands between to embark on a 1,000-year journey through the chill night is transcendent in nature, and her intention to rid the world of cosmic influence would allow for a pure world, free of the outer gods' tampering. And yet, we can go further with this. When Vishnu withdraws, the cosmos is said to drop and perish like a dead mass. He is the core of cosmic order. Similarly, when Ranni inherits order and embarks on her journey far away from the lands between, the influence of the cosmos is taken with her, effectively withdrawing. The connection between the outer god's influence and the cosmos is evident in the item description for the Staff of the Great Beyond, which reads, "The Mother received signs from the greater will from the beyond of the microcosm. Despite being broken and abandoned, she kept waiting for another message to come." Moving on to Ranni's lower pair of hands, the symbolic parallels are more tenuous, but still worth noting. They sit in a position similar to the Dhyana Mudra, the archetypical pose of contemplation, albeit inverted. This pose is said to resemble symmetry and stillness. Ranni is indeed still. From what we know of her, she spends most of her time sitting, contemplating, plotting to bring about her order. To summarize, Ranni's blue skin and importance to cosmic order bears a strong resemblance to Vishnu's role as a Hindu deity, but the exact positioning and symbolic role of each of her 4 arms falls more into the territory of speculation. After a thorough exploration of the symbolic parallels between Miquella, Ranni, and the Hindu deity Vishnu, I hope you've gained a stronger understanding of the 2 4-armed Empyreans, and their reasons for appearing as such. At the end of the day, what I have presented is theory and speculation, not hard fact, so please keep this in mind when commenting. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps the channel grow and every click counts. Thank you, and see you next time.